I thought, for one thing, I think that the FromSoft games are totally philosophical texts themselves. Um, but also, I think I'm just amused by the idea of doing playing a video game, a FromSoft game. Well, any video game, but really FromSoft are some of the only ones I could think of that have that level of philosophical sophistication. Um, Playing it that way, so we're going super slow through this, and I usually start with a little going over my notes we have for those of us that are those of you that have been there since the beginning, and those of you that are joining now. Um, we have an ongoing notes document with the lore of the game, the philosophy of the game, and usually I go over that. The thing is that what we've been doing, I'm not kidding when I say we are combing slowly over it, is that we've gone over West Limgrave. I've already pretty much covered that, so we don't necessarily need to go over it again. But we did some etymological diving, and we found out that limb goes back to Latin, like liminal or edge, dividing line. So of course, limgrave is the dividing line of the grave, which there's tombs. You start in a graveyard there, but especially there's undead there, right? So it makes sense that it's called Limgrave, right? And the question one question that we don't have answered. I don't know that we're ever gonna get it answered. I'm not necessarily optimistic on that front, but we'll do our best. One question is, was it always called Limgrave, or is that a name after the shattering? I assume, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I assume, which seems like a safe bet, that the undead came to the land after the shattering, right? The event, because it's already been mentioned by NPCs and by items that the shattering upset the bounds of, I can't remember the exact wording, like the bounds of death or something, right? But if we're going with a Derrida reading, right, there were these binaries in place, like life and death, and the shattering, that event has upset those boundaries. And of course, then it'd be great that it was called Limgrave, since Deridians love to be about the liminal. That word gets used constantly, the liminal, where there's a division between two things, but if you look closely, can you really see where this thing ends and the other begins, right? So that's kind of Limgrave. And we've been walking around, right? There's obviously gameplay wise, we know what's up with the dungeons, which is just cool. Like, I talked about this, which is recorded on YouTube and one of my earliest streams. I think one of the cool things is that Souls games, FromSoft games, have always been based on Dungeons and Dragons, but they've D&D going, especially explicitly if you go all the way back to 0th edition, which is what I showed. There's explicitly like two sets of rules, one for dungeons and one for wilderness. And if you look at it from that perspective, all the other Souls games and Bloodborne and everything have always been, in dungeons the whole time. This has a blend of dungeons and wilderness. So it's pretty cool. But lore-wise, right, the caves are just, they're filled with wild creatures. So it's just, fills out the ecology of the place, which is cool. There was so the coastal cave that we did, it had some goblins in there. So I guess that goblins tend to be nomadic, right? We've run into roaming goblin tribes, but they also set up homes in caves. We fought the Beast Man of Farum Azula, or whatever it was. Maybe it's not Azula. Maybe I'm confusing it with Avatar or something like that. And at this point, we don't know what that is. I know from Twitter spoilers that there is a place called Farum Azula, at least I think, that we can go to. So we'll probably remember that later when we come back, right? But that dude thing was living with the wolves. And then there's just like this tombstone. It was pretty cool because there's like these, it makes, or not tombstone, tomb, like this underground grave with these caskets and with these, I don't know what the word is for them, but these walls that have, cutouts in the wall to lay bodies to rest. And that's that it makes sense for those, since historically in like the pyramids or the Qin Emperor in China, I hope that's the pronunciation, sorry if it's not, there are, literally traps were built in those tombs because they believed that from thing literally to stop grave robbers, but especially it's important to stop grave robbers because if you don't stop grave robbers, then you don't get to take those riches with you to the afterlife. So that makes sense. But also it mentions specifically to the lore of Elden Ring, there's these roots running all throughout the dungeon. And it's right below like Storm Hill or whatever. I think that's what it's called, right? Which is what I originally thought, where I originally thought the Erd tree was, which is like the mother of all trees. But it turns out I learned from some items in there that's actually not the Erd tree. I think it was called the Great Tree or something. But that like the people in Stormvale worshipped that tree because it was supposedly born or connected by the root structure to the Erd tree. So I thought that was cool. And then that would explain why there's magic going on down there, like the gargoyles coming to life. I'm stalling Steven right now because I forgot there's an update for Elden Ring, but it's downloading pretty quickly, so it'll just be a second. But the other thing, I mean, it's actually good because I wanted to go over the lore anyway, what we know so far. And in terms of like the structure of Limgrave, it seems like to me what I'm thinking is that this, I mean, now obviously it's just undead. I guess we know that Margit is still alive. There's some people alive, but for the most part, sorry. I got darn updates, I know. That it's mostly the land of the undead. So so I sneezed literally all the thoughts out of my brain. Like they're gone now. I was talking about the Limgrave. So I think that right before the Shattering, before everyone was undead, Stormvale was like it was like a feudal structure, right? Like Stormvale, like throughout the land, presumably in main Limgrave and even up on Storm Hill a little bit, probably there was like farmers and things, and they were obviously being heavily taxed by Stormvale, taking a lot, even maybe most of their crops and whatever. But there are also these structures throughout the Limgrave that presumably were military structures where Stormvale soldiers were and are still there. Actually, it's now confirmed that those soldiers are Stormvale soldiers, but they're undead now. But they have that insignia, which is the Stormvale insignia of the red and green, the twin of the I think it's a lion. It could also be some other kind of creature like that, and the tree, right? So obviously we know that Stormvale. Now we know, I think, that Stormvale worships the Great Tree in turn of the Erd Tree. But those military outposts suggest that, yeah, Stormvale was a feudal society, and they were, taxing people who lived there. I mean, probably by force, but in exchange for military protection, right? And in addition to, I assume we're going to meet other factions. So in addition to kind of those military outposts being to fight against other factions, it's also to presumably to protect against, like the wolves that are all over the land, the goblin bands, vampire bats, things like that. So yeah, and then there's the dragon that we killed, a Geel or whatever. It's interesting that dragons don't seem to have been affected by the shattering. I guess now that I think about it, it seems only humanoids were affected by the shatterings, right? Like it doesn't seem that wolves are affected. It also doesn't seem that goblins were affected, so yeah, why was Stormvale affected? That actually, now that I think about it, I don't really know. But yeah, anyway, we have one more little dungeon to do before we do Stormvale, which is the Limgrave tunnels. So and since that's mining, we'll find out. But I assume that the mining is tied to or that the mining would be something also that would be an activity that inhabitants of Limgrave were being forced to do by Stormvale in exchange for protection or something like that, military protection. What they were mining for, I don't know, and that I'm hoping, and I imagine we will, because it's FromSoft, find out what they were mining for in there, but we have to do the dungeon to find that out. But yeah, that's interesting. We also have I should realize there's actually 2 more dungeons to do, because we also have 2 stone sword keys now. So now we can do the dungeon in the beginning of the game. So we'll do both of those dungeons and then Stormvale. I'm really, because the other thing, I mean, this is just how I want to do it. This is, and if you're watching this, that's why you want to watch it, because there are plenty of people who are running through the game, but there's, that's what this stream offers you, is this very slow, lore heavy, combing playthrough. But as a result, which is the one thing that's kind of annoying, which is why I kind of sometimes hate leveling in games, is that we're going to be super over leveled. And I do enjoy being, not super over leveled, so you can really go rage mode but beat the bosses. But whatever. This isn't gonna be my only playthrough, so next playthrough I can do a more direct run through of the main parts and try to, have more challenge with the bosses. And I'm sure, well, I don't know, we'll see. I was gonna say I'm sure it'll still be difficult, but some of the bosses I've done already have been like so easy. I think because I'm just leveled too high. But yeah, we'll see. And I still don't know I still have no idea, even though we've been. I have no idea what the whatever it is the round table is. The round table hold. Also, last time we were playing, which was like a week ago, and I got food poisoning during the stream, which is like, if you watch that, I was just like walking off the bridge on my horse, dying. It was like the food poisoning was hitting me, and I was like not able to focus anymore. But I'm not gonna redo that probably. Like, I mean, I guess at some point I'll kill that guy, but I don't care that much about doing that, really. But yeah, I mean, that's a question that I'm still trying to figure out. Which I actually realized I did figure out last time, right? Who are these dudes on nights that are around in these camps? That at first I was like, are they associated with Stormvale or not? But I think we got some items, some like equipment that confirms that they are not associated with Stormvale, although they might have been hired by Stormvale, but that they were like mercenaries. I think the word they were using was sellswords. These are people who are not part of a faction and probably themselves are nomadic, but are they sell in exchange for currency. They are like bodyguards or assassins or mercenaries or something like that. So now they're just kind of, I think they're undead also, just kind of roaming around the land. And I also don't know if they're connected to the Tree Sentinel or not. The Tree Sentinels, I think there's more than one. But the Tree Sentinels, right, are protectors of the tree, I assume, based on the name. Let's actually look up what is the like etymology of sentinel. Are they the tree is the one you fight at the beginning tree sentinel tens, sentens, or is it Shazam? It's a dumb Valorant reference if you watch Pro Valorant. My Chrome is not opening, so we might not know what the etymology of sentinel is. I could play guitar or something while we're waiting. Sorry, I forgot. I should have known because there was like a big update. I remember hearing about it, but I just was not thinking about it. Define sentinel. So the little definition of sentinel is a soldier or guard whose job it is to stand and keep watch. And it's from either French or Italian with unknown origin. So not useful at all. I guess yeah, I mean that's an open question I guess we have to think about is are the tree sentinels, are they like that's just their own personal religious conviction? They need to protect the tree, or is there someone that's hiring them? And if so, is it like a person or is it like the tree? Like it's like the calling of the tree. That's something that interests me. Another thing that raises a little bit, there's I thought it was so interesting. There's on the Halig Drake talisman, or actually I think on any of the Drake talismans, it links the Aird tree to history, to the birth of history, and links the study of the stars, like in the glintstone sorcery, to prehistory. And like I mentioned, history is literally what the actual real life distinction between prehistory and history is history is the development of writing, right? Because history, once you have writing, historians can actually go back and look at contemporaneous documents and see how people were recording their own history, both through literally like historical practice and also through ledgers of transactions. Once you get to that point, if you do like literature, like poetry especially, obviously people are writing, these kinds of written records that give insight into history. So prehistory is before there was writing, so that you just don't have that kind of access as a historian. The only thing you can do is look at buildings left over, look at like pottery and things like that, look at if you look at like bones, things like that. You have to go off, but you don't actually have writing, so it's prehistory. It's pre the possibility to write history. So in Elden Ring, to say that this glintstone sorcery was practiced prehistory, and then that the Erd tree is history, I think is just pretty cool, because that means the Erd tree literally brought about writing, right? So there's the great flourishing, which could be connected to antiquity in the real world, in ancient Greece or ancient China, anywhere that would be the emergence of writing, and as a result, these kind of flourishing civilizations. That is connected to the Erd tree. Like the Erd tree brought about the flourishing, presumably where this feudal Stormvale society of Limgrave happened, was when the Erd tree brought about this flourishing. And so I think that's it gives us some more to think on. I'm still interested. We haven't really seen anything yet about this like glintstone sorcery kind of stuff. But to find out what's going on there, I think is interesting. But a tree literally produces paper, right? Early writing, actually, I don't think there was any early writing, as far as I know, that was on paper. But it's obviously today that's where the writing is, and on computers now. But there's something to this Erd tree being linked to history that I think is pretty cool, and we'll find out more as we go.